and welcome to the first edition of PubVision presented by Internet and Mobile Association of India. PubVision is the largest virtual gathering of digital publishers in India. The theme for this edition is the business of digital publishing. Our first session is a discussion on opportunities for homegrown tech in emerging India. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers, Shri Vikram Sahai, Joint Secretary, I&B Ministry, Mr. Aprameya Radhakrishna, Co-founder and CEO, KU, Mr. Bharat Gupta, Chief Executive Officer, Jagran New Media. A very warm welcome to you all. Dear delegates, this is to remind you that this session is only for relevant industry stakeholders. Requesting you not to quote any of our speakers or the content in the media to maintain the decorum of the session. Over to you, Mr. Bharat.
Thank you so much. Good morning, friends. I'd like to officially welcome you to PubVision 2021. I'm really thankful to Mr. Sahai for taking out time and gracing us with his presence. Of course, the whole discussion is going to be very, very interesting. We also have Apramey joining in. I think the whole concept of PubVision was on one side, as publishers, we have a great responsibility to drive knowledge, information, and point of view towards progressive and inclusive society. On other side, it's also very important to establish sustainable business models. The times are changing, and more than 60% of Indian audience is now online. And how is it impacting the whole ecosystem? So today, throughout the course of day, you will see the discussions bucketed between building of scale in terms of audience, product, and unique diversity in terms of language that exists in India. In terms of impact, what is the impact of content on audience engagement? What is the impact of technology to grow our products? And finally, in terms of sustainability, the impact of policy, the impact of environment, and impact of company work culture to help with building scalable models. I think with this brief introduction, I would like to welcome Mr. Sahai and share his viewpoint on how does he look at the next, if I may say, the billion users who would be coming out of India online and shaping up and transforming this rapidly changing and exciting environment in India. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bharat Gupta, and sorry for this last moment confirmation, because till yesterday I was not very, very certain whether I would be able to participate, but in the morning I had some discussions and I felt I must be around just to participate and learn from all of you, because government is only just one spoke in the entire ecosystem where we all working in. And we talk about digital media, that is an ecosystem which has, India is now among the topmost countries, if not the top country, in terms of the growth, both in depth and width, spread, as well as the vertical and horizontal spread of digital media. When you all would be aware, recently there was a study by TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority, which said that in the last 6 years, the data usage in our country has gone up 43 times. Now that is, that is a very, very stupendous figure. And while there could be several reasons why it could have spread that way or gone in such a high, at such a high growth. Also because one reason, of course, is that the costs of data usage has gone down tremendously. And the study shows that it has gone down by 25 times. So a 25-time reduction in the cost has led to, or among the main reasons leading to a 43 times increase in data usage. And especially in the last 2 years, with people being at home, and the use of digital media has gone up exponentially in the country. And if some reports are to be believed, people below age of 35 predominantly are seeing news on the digital platform. They are not reading newspapers. although I am a person who reads the newspapers every day very carefully, but by and large, the growth of digital media, digital news publishers, and that is where the potential of market comes into being. Similarly, with OTT platforms, that you see a huge growth of visibility of these OTT platforms in the last 2 years. So this is all very good news for the country, for the people of this country, but most importantly for all those people who are employed or who have a passion to work in this industry. It could be content creators, it could be journalists, it could be other type of producers, it could be the tech people, all of them combined together to make this industry a very, very vibrant industry. And in this entire scenario, what should be the role of the government? But this entire industry which we see is in private hands. Government has no role to play in terms of day-to-day businesses. But government has to play, and it is trying to play, an enabling role to encourage and enable the entire industry to grow, whether it is through policies of investment, whether it is through policies of other parameters. We all would like the industry to grow and more people to be employed in this industry, and the large citizens to take advantage of that type of growth. Well, we have been talking about, and there's a lot of media attention about government's recently notified rules on digital media, and several views have been expressed. I do not want to get into all those aspects, but the point which we would like to make is that while the digital media growth is absolutely welcome, and all of us are actually taking advantage of that and beneficiaries of that, when the rules were being framed and some regulations and something was being worked out, what we were looking at is a level playing field between traditional media and digital media. And that is what we try to endeavor to achieve through these rules, that there should be a level playing field. All those of you who have looked at regulatory aspects of how traditional newspapers and TV industry have grown, we also know that there are certain do's and don'ts in the national interest and interest of citizens, especially children. Certain do's and don'ts are there, and which have been very easily and without any difficulty being followed by the traditional media platforms, both TV and print. We wanted a similar level playing field for digital media because for a reader or for a viewer, the technology has now tried to converge traditional and digital. It has led to convergence. So for him, it's not much of a difference whether he's reading a newspaper or he's reading a news portal, news from a news portal. Similarly, whether he's watching a film certified by the CBFC or film which he's watching on Netflix or on Amazon or any of these OTT platforms. So that level playing field was one of the very essential parts of philosophy or a principle under which we worked out. And but yes, we did take care in terms of OTT films and web series and OTT. We wanted to make a distinction between what is being shown on a public exhibition in theaters where there's a pre-certification by CBFC, and what is being shown on a OTT platform, which is more of a one-to-one interaction between the OTT player and the viewer. So instead of having any pre-certification, we talked about self-certification, and that has been largely welcomed by the industry. That is what our feedback is. And I must say that the IAMAI has played a very important role trying to bring people together and trying to develop, to have some dialogues over it. So all in all, as we progress with this entire ecosystem, we all will work together, and I don't think there should be any difficulty, there should be any fears or apprehensions, and we all work together. And as far as the growth and investment is concerned, I think the government would like it to happen faster than what it is happening today. So these are my initial thoughts, and I really welcome all of you, and I'm thankful to all of you for having been called me over. And I hope the entire deliberations today, and if there are any things, any issues which you think concerns the government, please let me know. We will be very happy to take those issues and try to clarify the issues, or if not today, then later on, and take things forward in a very collaborative manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahai, for sharing your views so transparently. And of course, I know right now the environment in India is a little hot when it comes to content. But I think on behalf of publishers, though, only thing which I would like to share right now is that while we understand the intent of the ministry in terms of visibility surrounding the online publishers, because with the whole democratization of internet, suddenly there is a lot of information that is getting created, produced, and shared, consumed within the audiences, right? The cost of entry barrier is zero. So while there is a lot of good which is happening, it's also given a birth to misinformation, and which is the cause of biggest worry. And then I think clearly the government is wanting to introduce an accountable structure where the publishers are responsible for all the content that is getting created, and it's a level playing field. At the same time, my humble feedback from all our peers would be to look at the jurisdiction part, and please keep in view that there is a difference between the legacy television and print publishers who have been operating under the stringent guidelines of that has been defined by the government, versus a one-man operation, if I may say, who's just producing news. So there is a lot of difference, and we are very, very accountable towards the norms set by the government and respectful towards same. However, when framing the policy towards its final end, I would like to invite your attention to be sensitive about this point, because I think the freedom of voice is also something which needs to be looked at. So, yeah.
I mean, if I may just mention, I think I totally appreciate your views and the concerns. And as I said, we have to, this is an evolutionary process. Digital media or any type of a regulation or institution structure from the government on digital media is something new, even if you look at it internationally. Not every country has it, but some countries do have it. So as we grow and as we move along, we would be evolving with time. Today, I'll just tell you, 2 days back, the Culture Secretary of UK, of Britain, he is also alluded to the same issue, that whether we can have a level playing field between traditional platforms and digital platforms. And they have already have a white paper in the UK Parliament, and they are also trying to grapple with the situation. So we do understand the concerns that traditional media and digital media cannot be seen totally in the same line. But we felt let us begin with this level playing field system without having any new statute, any new restrictions. And this is an evolutionary process. So let us move together and see how we have to move. It's a long way ahead. And definitely we will work with the sensitivities of the industry. One thing I just wanted to mention, because I believe there's a lot of people from the advertising industry here, and advertisement on digital media is now a big business. Our concerns really are not much as far as advertising on digital media is concerned, because of course digital media is only a platform. Advertisement can be on any of the platforms. So there is nothing specific on content of advertisement relating to digital media. The only thing we expect, and we would expect from all the people who are in the advertising agency, that there are certain existing norms by which advertisement content is prepared. So the same norms would apply whether you are pushing advertisement on a traditional media or a digital media or etc. So there are also internal guidelines which advertising agencies have, and that is their own self-restraint or a self-regulatory system is they have. So my only request would be that you look at these guidelines and work within the same guidelines, so that there are no issues relating to the advertisements which are coming on the digital platforms.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sahai. And I would like to ask Aprame, Aprame being a budding entrepreneur and having established a great point of view platform called Coup. What are his thoughts around the growing Indian environment? And I think with Mr. Sahai being here, I think it would be great you can share your insights around the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Bharat. A great pleasure to be on the same panel as Mr. Sahai and you. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. You know, digital platforms is the way to go. We've seen that US has led the way for a long time, for the last few decades. And China did that in the last decade. It's time for India to do it now, right? So, you know, why India hasn't done it before is because, you know, the larger audiences of India never had access to internet, never had access to a device which was affordable enough to access the internet, right? Now is the time when everybody's gotten that opportunity and they are using internet like never before, right? If you look at what actually made the English-speaking audience thrive and thrive on the internet, it's actually not when they watch videos or consume just entertainment content or listen to songs. It is when they get empowered, right? What empowered us is the fact that we could search and get knowledge at our will. What empowered us is the fact that I could connect with anybody I wanted, irrespective of distance. What empowered us was I could communicate whatever I wanted to somebody, right, over a digital platform. What also empowered us is the fact that I could express my personality, my view, you know, on a platform and have anybody in the world connect with me because of that reason. It enhanced me beyond my physical barrier or my friends and family or my town or my city or whatever it is. So what used to be local in terms of reach now became global, right? So I could sit and talk here and have somebody in the valley, you know, actually appreciate me for what I've said, right? So that power, I think, is what we are building today, right? Beyond consumption of content, I think when we give the power, real power of the internet to people to express, to search, to get knowledge, to communicate, to connect, right? That is when India will truly unleash its power. It will accelerate all of the population of India, which is so hungry to achieve, right? Actually, the English-speaking audience has hit a glass ceiling kind of a thing where, you know, you're not aspiring much more. Like you might aspire to be a little more richer, a little more this thing, but the gap of aspiration is much higher for the broader audience of India. And you know, platforms, digital platforms which empower them are the ones that will accelerate this by connecting. Like on Coup, basically, you know, people aspire to be like somebody. They aspire to be like a particular Bollywood actor or a sportsman or a politician or a IAS officer or whoever they want to be, like a journalist, right? But today the gap is so high because, you know, the most achieved individuals of India are on English platforms and communicating in English, right? That has never reached, as in the people of India who, you know only or prefer Indian languages have not been able to go and, you know, connect with them in a natural manner, right? So that is what we are doing at Coup, enabling local language communication along with English, connecting India deeper, and giving the opportunity for everybody to express themselves. So I think it's a brilliant time for both entrepreneurs and the people of India to come together and really build a great digital ecosystem which everybody in the world will look up to.
Thank you, Aprameya. I couldn't have agreed more that in terms of sheer statistics, if we have more than 600 million internet users now, by next year there'll be 750 million, and 5 out of 10 new user is going to come from Hindi heartland, and 9 out of 10 new user is going to consume in language. So that is the audience diversity which is being created, and that is where the real empowerment is happening around what we call as New Bharat. And these are the people who are very aspirational, but because of lack of information, were not able to grow. And today there's no unstopping, right? And but at the same time, uh, we realized that China as a country suddenly overtook, and it overtook global companies from US or from elsewhere, and they created a very strong economy or environment for themselves, which is very closed. And now, if you look at all the global companies, a majority of them are not operating in China. Whereas on the other side, which leaves India as the second largest internet population after China, right? So today, in terms of global scale, India is second largest internet population, which brings in a lot of opportunities in terms of audience connect, in terms of future, in terms of tech sector and stuff, which also invites, as Mr. Sai said, opportunity to create advertising. So in India, digital advertising is growing at poised to grow at 26% CAGR, one of the fastest amongst the world. And this year, the last financial year was the tipping point when digital overtook print in India. And then finally, in terms of investment, I think last year alone, there was a $12.4 billion investment which happened in the startup environment in India. From fintech to health tech to edutech to basic news and information, I think all the signals are green. But in order to create a very strong environment, I think a lot of ideation and collaboration needs to be done between entrepreneurs, the companies, and the government in terms of policy framework, in terms of understanding what are the nuances, where is the opportunity. And I think it's important that the new views come out in front of government. And I would give credit to this government to enable the true India digitally, the kind of drive the government has displayed and the zest government has displayed towards creating this environment for Indians is hats off, I would say, within a span of 5 years. A lot of digital first initiatives. But at the same time, how can government enable the startup ecosystem is what I would like to hear from you, Aprameya.
Yeah, so I think some very big steps have already been taken. I think identification of the fact that India has the potential has been done, right? And last year, so who came into prominence as a 3-month-old company by winning the Atmanirbhar App Challenge, right? It was by the government of India. Without that competition and us participating in it and the government having that competition in the first place, the collaboration between a small startup in Bangalore like us and the dreams of the government of India to make India a digital power wouldn't have come together, right? So, I think, some steps have been taken already and it's in the right direction, right? Just like, so you mentioned China. China is a walled garden internally, so it could grow because of its population. But at the same time, because of the walled garden, it will also find a problem going outside of India, right?
Yes.
So the opportunities for most companies that have done well in China will always remain within China, right? Because of India's approach of being open, while we will have a little bit of competition while we are growing, right? But once some of the companies grow, going global will become easier because we
Yes.
have a more open mindset, right? Like, for example, at Ku, we entered Nigeria within 2 days of, Nigeria suspending Twitter, right? Within 2 days, right? So I think we have a lot more opportunity by being an open economy digitally, so that, while we take up the challenge of growing against the incumbents, global giants initially, but the world is open after that if we do it right. Like, from China, TikTok and Zoom are two companies that the world over uses now, right? So there will be much more number of digital companies that will actually go and conquer the world. We built for India, and see, Bollywood, yoga, everything is cheered across the world. Like, there will be a Bollywood song playing in the West somewhere, and everybody's dancing. They don't know what's playing. There will be digital products from India which will be cheered outside, and it's a matter of time, right? So it's about us putting our heads down and really building loved products for the user, and collaboration between the platform, Indian users, and the government is what is going to make this happen, right? And a clear vision from all three parties. So I think the opportunities are immense, and we just have to take it up. As in, this is the right opportunity. This is the moment.
Sure. Thank you, Apramey. So coming back to Mr. Sai, any last words to the audience on how you see future and any upcoming positive initiatives that government has planned for growing the ecosystem?
I think what all has been said in the last 10 minutes speaks volumes of the potential which we have in our country, and also the potential to take us abroad, not only within the country but also internationally. And historically, India has had the most amazing talent, whether from the point of view of creating content for films or web series, or even in terms of the talk of journalists which we have in the country, who are producing and with a great sense of responsibility, which they have been exhibiting over the last decades, several decades. So we can expect to have the same optimism even on the digital platform, and they are doing that way. So I have a very optimistic vision of how we are going to progress within and outside the country, and the government is always there to support it, to encourage it, and we are going to work it all together. I can tell you from at least from the government side, we can assure you that. Thank you. And if you can permit me, can I take your leave? I want to thank all of you, and I wish all of you very good for the entire day's session. And whatever takeaways are there for the government, please let me know. We will be happy to work upon it together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sai. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Great. So back to you, Apramey. So I think it was interesting to have Mr. Sai talk about the willingness of government to work together and recognizing the opportunity. So another question which I had for you, Apramey, is that while there is audience opportunity and through marketing, we have seen the importance of research-driven initiatives and powerful ideas in terms of talent, which you talked about, which exists in India. One of the key instrument for driving the platforms or any kind of digital presence forward is the core tech. And increasingly, AI and ML is being instrumental in driving a lot of these interactions, conversations, or recommendations, or the whole experience, if I may use the word itself, right? So often when and I'm now talking from a publisher perspective, when we look at India as a geography where we want to grow our content engagement to a very high degree, at times access to the talent around AI/ML or the core tech around AI/ML comes as a big challenge. So what are your views? What were your learning at KU?
I think talent represents itself as soon as there is demand for the talent, right? so for example, with who, a childhood friend of mine who is in the US, an Indian settled in the US, has worked with companies like Yahoo and various others, and is a great guy with machine learning, right? And he started helping us last year, and he's going to join us this year, right? So there's a lot of talent which is Indian. Just that the demand for that talent was abroad, and hence they worked there. Today, as soon as the demand for such talent increases in India, they will all be very, very happy to start contributing to Indian companies, right? So there'll be a transition phase, is my guess, of talent that already knows machine learning, but has to be mapped to an Indian product or an Indian use case. That will take a couple of years or 3 years or whatever, half a decade, right? But beyond that, I think the senior talent that is out there training some of the junior talent here in India will set up the talent base for the next decade or two, right? So I think we're in that initial phase where we're just realizing the demand for such talent, right? Talent won't be there when there is no demand. The demand is just starting. So that is my view, that it will only get better. The CEOs of the largest companies across the world are Indians. The talent which is building for all the largest companies is Indians. And as soon as there is a need for Indian companies, most of them will be there, is my guess.
I think very well said. And I truly agree with you that India is the hub of talent, and till now everyone was outsourcing from here. But I think hearing from you should further make our publisher friends more feel strongly about the availability of same. So great. I think it was great talking to you, Apramey, and understanding what KU has been doing in terms of addressing the audience opportunity, the content, how you're different in terms of the global players. But at the same time, I think I would also, my last question to you would be, in as a content differentiator, how do you really see KU shaping up? Because there is no end to applications or platforms that are designed to enhance voices. So, what is the true unique strength of KU that truly separates it from others?
Yeah, I think the unique opportunity that KU has is going deeper into any country. Right? Whether it's our India story or our Nigeria story, it is about connecting people deeper within using local language. Because you use local language, you encourage local culture. So discussions around which the app is built is all local culture, right? And a respect for the other person's stage of development, which means, if you look at the two countries that we're operating out of, India and Nigeria, both are not developed countries. Like, our per capita incomes are much lower, right? And we can't say, everything else takes precedence over this. So the fact that the governments of each of these countries and many more across the world have a lot more, challenges that they are solving today, and don't want, a division of, the thought on freedom of speech and stuff like that, right? There is a law of the land, everybody respects it, and you don't want disruption in the country, which, then suddenly makes people think all kinds of things, right? So I think, what you do at a startup and what you do at a, public company which has run for 30, 40 years is different. The 1-year-old startup is still developing its processes, is figuring a product market fit. You can't go and ask them how much profit you're making, right? So it's like that. In the in the globe, when you go and ask a developing country, okay, you should give freedom of speech full marks, and you forget everything else, right? You forget your law of the land. That doesn't work for a developing country. It works with freedom of speech is very important, but law of land is important as well. So I think these nuances of local language, local culture, and local law of the land is what makes KU special.
I think that's again a very important point you raised. And there's a question from the audience that do you think with the implementation of the new IT rules, a level playing field for Indian and international companies can be maintained?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a takedown request from a user. Let's say there is some photo of me doing the rounds of the internet, and I want it to be taken down. Today, there is no way for me to contact any of the global giants as a user. Like the user is, perplexed as to what is happening. I can't even talk to somebody and say, why is this here? Right? So I think having a grievance officer, having somebody to reach out to, and having a time frame within which I will be able to get a redressal is an extremely important step, right? So all the IT guidelines that have been issued for intermediary platforms, I think is a very user-centric way of looking at things. And for a company registered in India like us, it gives the comfort that everybody else, irrespective of where they are from, will also follow the same guidelines, right? And it's in the interest of the user. Yeah, it does make it a level playing field.
Super, super. Thank you so much, Pramay. Another question. According to you, what are the current Indian tech startups uh, facing in terms of, sorry, according to you, what are the current Indian challenges that tech startups are facing in terms of technology?
As you rightly pointed out, Bharat, I think it is acceleration of talent pool, right? I think our salaries have ballooned up, but our ability to deliver is still not matching the salary. So it's becoming expensive, but you're not able to really compete globally yet. So that bridging of talent in India has to accelerate. I think that's the biggest thing. I think a few examples of companies dreaming big and showing it to the audience. There are enough entrepreneurs who will start learning and dreaming bigger, right? So that is not the problem. I think the talent which works for these startups also has to dream big. Also has to say, this search functionality that I'm coding for this Indian product that I'm working for has to be better than what is already there, right? So that attitude of beating the world at an engineer level when they're coding is what we should imbibe, and we should imbibe it fast.
Super. I think that's again a personal observation at my company too, that the point you very well raised around the increase in salary versus actual delivery. So I think that's something that talent really needs to ponder in terms of not only sustainability of an organization, but for their own growth path as well. That what is the true delivery? So, which brings us to a last question from our audience. Do you think the government should allocate resources, especially for the development of Indian applications?
So so let's say the vision is become the largest, most powerful digital ecosystem of the world. Okay, let's say we make that statement. We are in the beginning. Now, to hit a vision like that, initially, everybody has to contribute, not just the government. I think, investors who are investing into early stage startups have to take a lot more risk. Entrepreneurs who are dreaming have to dream aligned to this vision. The government, with its policies, has to see this has to make sure that the policies are with this vision. So as a country, we're aligned to one vision, which is we'll take the risk, capital risk, we'll take the salary hit, we'll dream bigger as entrepreneurs. We will make policies that will, set the tone for the world, not just India. I think everybody coming together, making few sacrifices initially, just like a startup does, right? You stop taking salary. You you ask your employees to take a little less salary. You give equity. So all of us in our country are in a stage where we are going to benefit a lot if the country becomes the largest digital ecosystem of the world, right? So a few sacrifices from everybody, and putting in 20 years worth of effort in 1-2 years is very important from every person in the ecosystem.
Super. Super. I think so. It was great to speak to you, Aprameya, and hear your views. A big fan of Ku myself. Wishing you all the best. And you've set a great example for a lot of Indian publishing companies. So I hope there are more takers and believers after listening to you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aprameya.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Aprameya Radhakrishna and Mr. Bharat Gupta for joining us today and sharing some really interesting insights with us. Special thanks to the Joint Secretary of the INB Ministry, Shri Vikram Sahai, who took time out to join us today. I would like to thank Kantar, our knowledge partner. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in 15 minutes with our next session. Please stay tuned.
Thank you.